Hi, I'm Chuck. Thanks for watching. I've been working a lot with antlers over the past couple of weeks, and I've had some ideas and tried some different things that I thought it might be fun to share with everybody. I think one of the traps we fall into is that we just put an antler in, we put a pin tube in it, we turn it out, and we get a nice looking pin, but I'm not sure that we take a few minutes to just really look at maybe what some of the artistic opportunities are with the antlers that we have to work with. Let me kind of show you what I'm talking about. For turning antlers, the antler is basically comprised of a couple different sections. One of them, of course, is the outer bone. That's the one where you get a lot of the texture and characteristics of the antler. Then there's a hard inner bone, and then there's a more porous marrow. Now the marrow is not soft or anything like this. It's very, very hard, but it's also brittle. So when you're turning it, you need to exercise a lot of caution, or you can tend to break it off or chip it out. And so if you're using sharp tools and just being careful, you'll do very well with it. But if you get in a hurry and gouge it in, you could experience some problems with it. Now, depending upon the type of antler, you're going to get a couple different characteristics. This is a mule deer antler, and you'll notice that it's very, very smooth along its entire length. Conversely, on my elk antler right here, you're going to see that it's got a lot more texture and a lot more formation of what you would think the ridges and stuff. That still comprises the outer bone, the inner bone, and then the marrow sections. So what I'm suggesting is that we take advantage of these characteristics of the antler with our projects to kind of bring out as much of the word that says antler that we possibly can. This is a nice little piece of antler here. It would make a nice little pin blank. But when we get done with it, it's basically going to be a very nice pin, but it's going to be very nondescript. You're going to see just a little coloring on that, and you're going to see a picture of that in just a second. Or if we were to take an elk antler like this, and you can see that this has been split down the middle, and I'll have a picture of this in a second. I've actually partitioned this out for 9 pin blanks. And what we would be able to do is we'd be able to get a pin like this one here that's going to show some very, very dramatic coloring, where we've been able to use the marrow to really bring out the qualities of that. We can do a lot more with antlers than just turn pins. They make some very, very nice bottle stoppers, and we're able to take full advantage of all the colorations on it. And you can actually make some cool things like pizza cutters and so forth, anything that you can do spindle work with. All right, so I know most of us aren't able to take a stroll through our backyard and find a freshly shed rack of antlers. There's some really good deals online, and I encourage you to look there and kind of probe around a little bit. And also, if you have access locally to a independent pet store or a large box store, a lot of them are carrying antlers now in bulk. That's where I picked this one up, and it retailed out at $29.99. The advantage to at least going into a store like that is you can take your tubes with you or take your project in with you and just kind of size it up, look at the different textures on the antlers, and find one that you think would work best for the project that you're trying to put together. What I wanted to do is go through it and just quickly demonstrate 2 projects that I worked for this video. One of them is to take an antler and use the outer portion of the antler to draw out the characteristics on a bolt action pin, and the other one is the pizza cutter. I'm not going to dwell on the turning aspects as much as more or less just the prep and how I tried to sculpt the antler to come out and work best for the project I saw. For my first step, I selected an antler with a nice straight back line. At this point, the most important step is to make sure I mark this piece of antler so that I can drill properly through it without cutting off either side or making it too far away from the outer edge to make a viable pin. To get the best possible alignment, what I'm going to do is mark the tip of a drill bit. And I'm going to basically put the bushing in so I know the placement of to where I want it. And then I'll mark it with that tip, with the drill bit. And so now I know exactly where to go through and drill that hole. I won't drill until the antler is completely straight and secure in the vise, and I've got the bit perfectly lined up with my marking point. All right. So although the antler typically turns like a lot of other medium, the marrow is very, very hard, but it's also very, very fragile. It's very brittle. So it's important to both run with completely sharpened tools and also to have a very light touch as you approach it.
After I've trued up the blank, being careful not to go all the way down and take out the outer coloring, I'll go ahead and I'll just taper in the ends of both sides of the blank into the bushing so I'll have a nice fit for the pin.
Alright, so it looks like I'm in it pretty close to where I want it to be. This is a nice outer bone setting. This is the inner bone, and then we're going to have the flush darker colors with the marrow. I'm going to actually sand this part here by hand because I don't want to do anything more to reduce that. So let me go ahead and I'll start off with probably like about a 150 on this and just kind of smooth out any of the roughness before we move on. And I'll sand. I just want to point out that even after sanding up to 1200 grit, the marrow is still very porous, and that's okay. We'll fill all of that in with the CA finish. So after the buffing, we've gone ahead, we've assembled the pin, and you can see that we've got that nice exterior color and texture on one side, and then as we rotate it around you can catch a glimpse of the inner bone, and finally the nice colors and hues from the inside marrow. And the second project I wanted to show you is I'm going to make myself a pizza cutter. I've made a lot of them for gifts, but I've never made one for myself. I'm way overdue. The nice thing about this particular model pizza cutter is I can unscrew the blade so it can go in the dishwasher without the antler, because you do not want to put the antler in a dishwasher. So I've selected a piece out of my box, I've squared it off, I'm going to cut it down to my hand length, and I think I'm going to get an awful nice look out of this. So let's get in on this one also. For the pizza cutter, I've epoxied the receiving nut already inside of one end of the antler, and on the other end where I'm going to put the life center to it, I've come through and I've basically tried to firm that up with some super glue to hold it in. And on the lathe I've set up a jam piece to mount the antler to. Now as you can note from seeing this on, it's extremely out of round, and I don't have any intention to correct that. What I'm going to try and do is come in and taper in each end and blend those in so that I can blend this into the cutter itself and then just kind of have a nice little tip there at the end for the handle. I'm going to leave the center part pretty much intact because I like the natural look of it and I like the natural feel of it. apply the CA on both ends while the lathe is running slow with a kind of a normal approach to doing it. And then I'm basically going to brush on the CA finish here. All right, well, we've seen by the way that this is turning because it's an irregular shape. I'm really going to have a difficult time trying to apply a CA finish on this while the lathe is running. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically brush it on. Now, you can use these little brushes, but quite honestly, it gets super expensive if you do that. So I'm going to spread mine out with the Q-tip. I've done that before, and I've had some pretty good success with it. And if anybody's got some different ideas or if they've had success with other techniques, I would certainly appreciate though passing that on to me. So let me just show you what I'm going to do. And I'm going to try and spread it as thinly as I can while still trying to get into a lot of the grooves and stuff. And once I get it pretty well spread and any of the runs out, then I'll go ahead and I'll apply the accelerator on it. You want to start doing that before it dries onto the Q-tip. I have the first coat completely on now, and I think it looks pretty nice. I'm going to put 2 more coats on off camera, and then I'll come back to you and we'll buff out the finish. Well, I want to thank everybody again for watching. I really do appreciate it. I think this little pizza cutter came out really, really nice. It's got a nice curve in the handle, which makes it really good to hold in the hand. And it's just a project that I had a lot of fun doing. So again, thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. Everybody be safe and have a good time out there.